Hello, everyone. Once again, good evening. Myself, Niroshini. I am a part of Academic Solutions team working at Vartana. So today we are gathered here to address a very, very important issue that's going on about student behavior, and it's a very interesting and the pressing topic of the hour. Before going into the webinar, I would like to also share some experience of the pandemic from my own experiences. So actually, before pandemic, we all had different synergies that were happening. There were different things we used to do our routine work. But post pandemic, we were all pushed into different situations, and likewise, our students, our teachers, even school leaders, we were all put into different situations, adapting to different environments. Likewise, our children were also, like concealed in home environment, and pandemic has impacted each and every one of us. I would like to share one of my experience where we see our own children at our house where their sleeping patterns have changed, their eating patterns have changed, the routine practice, everything has been impacted in one way or the other. And after this pandemic has happened, one good news, when schools were starting to reopen, there's a huge, like breath of relief where children were able to go to school and they were managed to go to school. But adapting to that environment has become like a slight challenge for children as well as the stakeholders who have started to handle, like the children. So this session is broadly going to be about student behavior management post-pandemic, and how are we going to help students to get back to schedule and routine. So this is the prominent topic today. Let's quickly start the session. So today we would be broadly covering, like what are all the important and the most prominent issues that are supposed to be, like addressed, that we have covered, taken as the important objectives to cover, and what is the impact that has caused, like the students to behave differently. What are all the changes that we see during this pandemic? And we also wanted to understand like what are all the different kinds of teacher difficulties are prevailing in managing these disruptive children behavior. So that is one important topic that we would be covering. And we also have a short feedback form in the end, and we will close. So this is the broad agenda that we would be discussing today. Before jumping on to the session, I would like to, like understand what are all the different behavioral changes that you have seen in your students in your classroom. So I would like to launch another poll. So it will pop up in your window. You can start answering. Quickly publish the results. So every one of us gathered here will know what are all the other school leaders feeling and what are all the other issues that are prevailing. So it's like it's alarming to see that like 72% of children are not able to follow instructions. That's very, very alarming. And it's also like very alarming to see that there's a decreased participation in the classroom where students don't show interest. And again, there's a huge problem in like discipline as well as attention deficit is one of the major issues to cause the others. So thank you so much for participating in the poll. Now we'll briefly discuss about the objectives. What are all the objectives that like we would be covering in this session? The main broad objective that we would cover is to understand what are all the modified student behavior that has happened due to pandemic. So what are all the changes that has happened? We would be covering that. We would also understand what are all the teacher difficulties the teachers are facing due to this disruptive behavior that's observed in children, and how can we support teachers to better equip themselves for the current situation. I would also like to inform the attendees that we have divided this session into two parts. Today we are in part one session, where we will be broadly discussing and we will be understanding the student behavior and the changes and how can we support teachers, as I mentioned in the objectives. And part two, we've exclusively brought an external speaker who's a child psychologist and an industry expert. She will be addressing the following week in brief how can we stabilize and mitigate these kind of student behavior and bring them back to the schedule. And here in this session we will be discussing surface level problems and understanding the causes. So we saw the poll results. It was so shocking, and actually we have some data points related to modified student behavior depending on the study. What are all the teacher inferences and observations that they have seen? We have done, we have picked up it from the study and survey, and the research shows the following results. There are different kinds of modified behavior in students at school. So we have categorized under three following broad categories. Let's see one by one. So first, as you all have answered how fairly the classroom participation has literally gone down, the study says that 40% of the children have mostly spent more than 5 hours in their digital devices because of online education, because WhatsApp classes were happening, because of pandemic the schools were closed. So children were pushed to that, but now that has again become like a huge problem, because before pandemic only 2% of the children were using a lot of digital device, but the increase in percentage is very, very drastic, where 40% now are they using more digital devices. And due to this digital impact, actually children don't feel that interest, or they have developed lesser interest in conventional teaching methodology. So immediately when they have come back to school, they are excited to meet their peers, etc. But when it comes to the academic focus, there's a reduced interest because they are so used to digital devices now. So now they have showed very reduced interest on the conventional teaching. And as we all saw in the poll results, definitely there's a no doubt about it, they are unable to follow instructions. And even answering to a factual question, when teacher is asking a factual question, definitely they are not able to answer. Even if they are able to answer, that the count of the students are very, very finite. So let's look at the second broad category, adhering to classroom discipline and rules. From the study, we've noticed that 76% of the teachers have reported there is definitely aggressive outbursts that's happening every other day inside the classroom. Example, if they go to assembly, or even for lunch breaks or etc., definitely there's an aggressive outburst that's happening because of lack of practice and routine. Definitely there's push pull here and there. So definitely there's a aggressive outburst that's happening every other day. And the important point that we have to address, where teachers keep saying that before usually the children are put to a practice to dedicate their time in a classroom for 40 minutes, right? A period has 40 minutes, but that question of ability to sit in the classroom for more than 30 to 40 minutes is so difficult for the child, and it's very, very visible now that they are not able to concentrate. And frequent bathroom breaks, because of their changed sleeping pattern and eating pattern at home, it has completely caused a disturbance in their pattern and routine that they used to follow. And moreover, to talk about the children who have not been to school, now this is out of question, because they don't know these routine practices, they don't know these classroom routines or behavior or the procedure that they generally follow. So this has impacted the younger children even worse in worse the condition. And like teachers have also raised that they consume more time to do even simple tasks like like taking their books from the bag, like getting to go to assembly on a like on a proper line. So all these basics again have become like a huge question mark for the school leaders and the teachers. These are some of the big observations that we got from the study. And the third broad category is peer relationships. Children actually did not get a good opportunity to meet each other because of the pandemic. They were concealed in a home environment. So like they were not put to a social interaction. So because of that, volunteering inside classroom or like student leadership for basic stuff, like who's going to collect the books or who is going to like go get something from the office room, even these things have been impacted according to the study. Especially when they are put on a group activity, the participation levels have reduced very, very drastically, which impacts their learning and impacting their group learning. Or like when usually when before pandemic, children get to learn from their peers more. Like when we are put them into a group activity, generally the mentality of the children is to like, okay, I'll learn it from my peer if I don't get it from the teacher. That has even impacted because of the pandemic. So I would like to stop here, and I would also like to like take some experiences from you, school leaders and teachers who are present here. Have you faced any issues like this inside the classroom? Please raise your hand so that I can unmute you. Katwari, I will allow you to talk, ma'am. You'll be able to unmute your unmute button. Hope you can see the unmute button and you can unmute yourself to talk. Any other participants who would like to share your experiences? Okay, let's go ahead. Let's understand what are all the major causes of modified student behavior that has happened. Like why this has happened. What is the major cause? We all know that like the pandemic has impacted the children, but there are serious underlying issues that is there for this modified student behavior. Let's look at it one by one. The main reason for the child's behavior to change is because 27% of children have been, like according to the study, they have started feeling lonely because they don't have an opportunity to interact with their peers. So they were not in a classroom setup, or else they were not even able to meet out their friends. So they have started feeling lonely according to the study, which results in consistent feeling of loneliness, which results in anxiety. As well as 39% of the children have reported, like parents have observed that they have disturbed sleep pattern due to stress. And also one factor to consider is because pandemic has changed a lot of people's life. Like there were a lot of family separations that would have happened. Child would have definitely gone through a lot of trauma, or child would have like noticed this in the media that like there are definitely a lot of deaths happening. So child also has undergone this fear of like separation from their loved ones, which all has accumulated to a huge like cause of anxiety, which in turn causes disruptive behavior in children, where most of the parents have observed that like children were like facing sudden emotional outbreaks or sudden emotional and behavioral changes. At least 1 in 4 parents have noticed this according to the data and study. And 29% of their children have abandoned their play habits. This is actually very, very saddening to hear that children, especially, like at this age group of, like 3 to 8 or even more, children love to play with, like a lot of, like kinesthetic method. But unfortunately, they've abandoned the play habits because of pandemic. They were put to pressure to, like learn from digital devices, which has a lot of negative consequences on them. And the second major cause for this is financial instability of parents. Actually, we all know that pandemic has, like turned the situations upside down, and it is even worse for the low income parents. So financial stability is a huge question for, like parents, where they also were very, very frustrated and stressed because of losing their jobs, or there was huge salary cuts. So more than three-fifths of, like the household, which is 62%, has dropped in their income from March 2020 to December 2021. And I guess it's still prevailing at certain conditions because of, like lockdowns, etc. And still the pandemic is not over, so that there's this has no solution, where there's, like a lot of financial instability around still. And because of this, as the parents are stressed, parents are put to a situation where they've started, like punishing their children. They've started, like corporal punishments or scoldings, because they were not able to manage completely their children at home. So children have definitely faced a lot of violence at home, because 1/4 of the parents have reported that themselves they have started scolding or punishing their children more. And again, a sad and alarming thing that has happened is that in India before pandemic, there were only 4% of child labor that was happening. But because of, like pandemic, the number of children in child labor is, like rose to 5%, wherein, like a lot of low income market parents did not have enough financial ability to even send their children to school. And some of them, we all know this case of, like some of them have moved to government schools, some of them, like completely they were stopped with education. So all these conditions have put the children to, like more of anxiety, more of fear, like feeling of loneliness. So as a result of the study, this shows definitely the children has an increased level of, like fear, and there's a decreased level in their confidence, in their personal abilities, in their skills, etc. And as you all know, and these data points are very, very alarming. And as stakeholders, I think definitely we need to, like address these issues immediately and take necessary actions. Like to hear from all of you, like what could be the effects of disruptive behavior on students in long term if we don't address this in long term. And also, I would like to listen from you. What do you think will happen if the disruptive behavior is not addressed at all? What do you think could be the consequences? Let's hear it from all of you. See some raised hands. I'm giving access so that you can talk. Sharbari, can you unmute and talk? Given access to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. I think that if the disruptive behavior in students is not addressed and measures are not taken to cure this, so it will really be a very disaster. It will be a disaster in the long run, because we can see that especially the age group, that 5 to 15 years age group, has been disturbed more due to this pandemic, due to social isolation. And like as teachers, as awakeners, as school leaders, we know that the children are future. Children are our future, and these things that you discussed, and like these feelings of loneliness and not being able to socialize, and all these things, like discussed violence also. So these things that have disrupted, especially in our Indian society, I think the disaster has been quite more, because only the fortunate, for those who are fortunate, those who are lucky enough to have open spaces at their homes, so mm they have been, means they were fortunate enough, so they I think even at home they got engaged in some extracurricular activities, like some playtime, some and otherwise the ones who were in, like in India, the poor ones who did not have that much of activities, they couldn't go outside and play like that. So they have become
Yeah,
just like, they lost everything associated to socializing, and this
yeah,
has really, it can affect them in the long run. Like they'll also become of that mood, na, to like socially withdrawn, and not they don't they getting angry, irritated of everyone, by
absolutely.
everyone, and becoming lazy, tending to, like, uh, uh, like they have psychologically they are disturbed more. So if
Yeah,
it is not addressed, it is not treated, and if again they are not brought back to the situation that where we
absolutely.
teach them manners and disciplines, rules, to socialize and to behave in a social, in the society, so it will affect our country more, and no, our communities also, and like because the children of this age group, they should have sound mind, otherwise uh, they'll be unhealthy physically as well as mentally.
Yeah, definitely, ma'am.
So
Thank you so much
it's
for sharing.
definitely a
Yeah,
loss
go
for
ahead,
our
ma'am.
communities and so like
Definitely,
that.
definitely. The important
Even
factor that you said,
kids, so they
like
won't,
they,
that won't be optimized use of their talent, like. So the children at this age group, especially 5 to 15 years of age, so they have to be like, we have to address these problems in the long run. We have to, like, this is a very nice platform where we are discussing it right now, and there should be more of such, and work should be done on it. I think so.
thank you so much for sharing, ma'am. And the fact that you told that they feel socially withdrawn is definitely a fact to address. So we'll see some of the solutions, surface level solutions, how it could be addressed. Thank you so
That
much for
too
sharing.
much of screen, yes, ma'am. Uh, that ma'am, too much of screen time. Uh, have you muted me again, or
No, no,
unmuted?
I haven't.
That too much of screen time, no, that thing has given them a feeling that they feel lonely, even in crowd, if they are not having their digital, like they're of they don't have that screen with them, no, whatever it is, like tablet,
Absolutely.
phone, or laptops. So they feel lonely. That has
Yeah,
become just like an essential body part with them,
absolutely.
because even the children, they are, whatever social, like whatever financial status they have, this thing, the net is available to most of the population. So like it has become such essential part for them, no? And they,
Yeah,
I think they have got used to, whatever they like the, that thing, na, that discussions, that group discussions, that socializing, all that is quite reduced. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
and
sharing.
let me tell you,
Go
ma'am,
ahead,
it
ma'am.
has not affected only children. It has affected us all.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to share, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. So thank you so much, Sana ma'am, to share your views, how this would impact them in the longer run. So we have a study report which shows how impact of this disruptive student behavior in long term would be if we don't address at the right time. So addressing the issue at the right time is also very, very important, rather than, like, not addressing at the right time will actually bring in more negative consequences than, like, than the positive ones. And it will make the situation even worse. The child not might be aware about that this is going to happen to him or her in the future. So as a stakeholder, it is our responsibility to take that, action immediately, and address that why this is happening, and also making the students understand that, like, this will impact. So that is again like a huge responsibility on our shoulders. So let's see how disruptive behavior may lead to harmful consequences that children might not be aware that in future, like, they would face anti-personal, like, disorders, or they'll face a lot of detention from the society. And again, like, like, they will sometimes, it may also lead to, like, failure of getting a good job, getting a good employment, which will, like, which will be gainful for them. So that's again like an issue that it has been shown in the study. Let's see how far it is impacting the consequences. Already, when the children are at classroom, because of their disruptive behavior, when the delivery of instruction is happening, if the children are disruptive and if they are disturbing the peers as well, actually there's a huge loss, which is 50%, close to 50% loss of instruction time, which will again result in poor academic performance, because they don't understand the concept that has been taught to the children at classroom. So that, like, when they are put to test or in the examinations, they generally don't perform well, which affects their grades. And they also lose the fundamentals of, like, what has to be understood is not understood there, and the achieving of mastery is again like a huge question there. So which in turn will, like, be like a huge impact of them missing social opportunities. For example, if the teacher is consistently noticing that this child is a disruptive child, then there is a huge impact on the child himself, because he misses all the social opportunities. Like, for example, teacher, like, doesn't try to, like, render leadership opportunities to him. Or even in the future, due to, like, facing a lot of detention in the classroom and in the like, at home even, child lacks a lot of confidence, so he doesn't interact well with the, like, friends or the environment around him. So missing all kinds of social opportunities, there's a huge chance where the child is put through this, which in turn, again, this is a statement where we have to, like, address it immediately, or the child's future is at stake, because there is a reduced reduction in their earnings in their early childhood, which is close to 3 to 4%. Child not might be aware of all these things that's, like, going to impact his future. So I think this is a pressing need where it has to be addressed immediately. It need not be, like, considered, okay, this is a disruptive child, I would not be addressing him. So rather to do that, instead of, like, doing that or giving negative consequences or punishments to the child, we can look at the problem in a very different way. So let's see how we could do that, and also let's see how we could, like, take measurable steps and figure out the solutions for these problems. And also, I would like to add one more value added point to this. These kind of problems are going to persist. These kind of behavior, it was displayed even before pandemic, but we have to be very consistent in what are we doing, and the solution also, we have to be very, very patient, be patient as teachers, because in figuring out the solution as well as in implementing the solution, we have to be consistent and patient in order to achieve, like, appropriate and ideal behavior from the child. So now I would like to, like, talk about, we are talking so much about children and we are talking so much about student behavior inside the classroom. But one of the important stakeholder who's handling day-to-day class is the teacher. And the teachers are responsible to the school leaders in delivering, like, academic mastery, as well as they are responsible to parents even in, like, building and shaping up them. So it's very, very important to even understand the teacher difficulties in managing disruptive behavior. Because if we don't understand, actually teachers are, like put to question at multiple phases where, like why this is not happening, because they face a lot of difficulties inside the classroom because of disruptive children. So let's look at the challenges for teachers. So as I mentioned just now, we also have challenges. Teachers have faced a lot of challenges before COVID also. But there's a variant, like after pandemic, the challenge has completely, like shaped up in a different way. So let's see how it is. Predominantly during, like before COVID happened, teachers used to struggle to, like finish their syllabus, like finish their curriculum. They have so many deliverables to do, like have checkpoint tests, lot of deliverables like that. So teachers were very, very busy and they were very occupied. And it was a challenge, to complete their academic achievements, what they're supposed to do to the child and whatever responsibility that was supposed to render. So almost 70% they were chasing their syllabus and they have to finish their deliverables. And only 30% of the challenge was, like related to disruptive children or behavior issues inside the classroom, where initially, usually when the year begins, they set the tone and they put the children to different kind of routines and practices so that the child knows that, like at least 80% of the classroom doesn't exhibit those kind of, like behavioral issues. But unfortunately, because of pandemic, it has turned the tables around, because now the teachers are completely facing behavioral issues. Almost 70% of the challenge is to, like attend to the behavioral issue, which in turn affects the delivery time for the teacher. The instruction delivery is hugely impacted for the teacher, where completing, attaining the academic mastery for 30% has become like a huge challenge according to the study. So now I would like to, like hear it from our own teacher, from our teacher fraternity. We would like to do a case study. We would like to hear from Sana ma'am from Madni Public School, Firozabad. She would share her challenges that she has, like faced because of disruptive children at her classroom. So we would like to listen from you, Sana ma'am. I would like to, like give you access so that you can talk about your challenges regarding behavioral issues at your classroom.
Okay, ma'am. First of all, it's not, yes, I'm Sana, ma'am, from Madni International School, and it's Muzaffarnagar.
Sorry,
I'm
sorry.
glad to hear that. And, ma'am, actually, that case study that you mentioned, the percentages that you told are exactly what we are feeling, what we are facing, and it's real that now that pressure is to control the behavior, not academically, because like before the pandemic, even the students, the same students that were who were doing so well academically, now even their reading and their writing, all these academically also they have gone behind. They're lacking those abilities that they used to have, and plus the behavioral problems are so much there. The students are lazy, first of all, and laziness, I think, is the cause of all other problems, because if we are having if they're fresh and positive, so the all things will follow up then. But first of all, they are lazy because they're just, I think, they not only there, we all we have gotten used to like that screen time also demands something like munching na. So even eating disorders, eating only junks, like unhealthy food, and this has given them physically also. So there's something like laziness, and like they are used to that na, that comfort of their homes. Yes, it was like very boring, but it was comfortable. So that comforts, they have gotten them to have behave in that way, not like they're like, okay, like you mentioned earlier that taking out books from their bags and all that thing also takes a lot of time, and like following all the commands, like simply let's take from the beginning. Even going for assembly is too much for them. And like it's they just want the school to be over soon so that they can go back and start their screens like that. And even writing speed has become so low, and like laziness in writing, laziness in reading, laziness in responding to any commands, and the behaviors like that home comfort of them of their homes, no, where they were they feel independent, so that they have gotten used to all these things. So we're facing a lot. Like, yes, it's true that 70% pressure is about the behavior, and 30% will move to that afterwards. First of all, it takes a lot of pressure to make them sit down and be attentive, and to get them to follow the commands. Like, I don't agree that that curiosity of meeting new people, like new batchmates, new classmates, that is there. But other apart from that, that normal socializing is not there even. Like, okay, people are sitting, our classmates, batchmates are sitting, what's the like there is no positivity in that also, no, like there is no tendency to holding conversations also, like teach whatever the teacher is saying. Sometimes it's like, like you have unmuted me, no. So sometimes post pandemic, I'm seeing that class participation is so, there is so much lack of it, no, as if I have muted all my students. So, yes, the behavior is quite low, in terms of like the behavior is
Understood.
negative. Yes, ma'am.
You so much
It's
for sharing your challenges, Sana ma'am. And I would like to address the entire gathering that Sana ma'am has shared her challenges. Would also like to know whether you have, gone through any similar challenges like this, and is there any measure in specific that you have taken to, address these kind of challenges at your school? So anyone who's willing to talk can talk. You can raise your hand so that I can unmute. See Aisha Muskan ma'am, who's here to share. Ma'am, I've unmuted you so that you can. Is there anyone else who would like to, share your experiences? Raise your hand so that I can unmute you. We can continue. Is there any specific steps you had taken, Sana ma'am, to control these measures, or is there any thing that you have done to mitigate these issues in your classroom? Anything like that you would like to share?
yes, ma'am. As a teacher, and as we all know, a very true universal truth that teachers are role models. So the first and foremost thing is that. So we have to keep calm and understand their behavior. Like, we know that what has affected them in this way. Those points you already mentioned, and it wouldn't be worth aren't worth mentioning anymore. That feeling of fears, in anxiety, loneliness, all those things. So we have to understand them. We have to take some steps, like like trying to engage them, because finally we are the guides, so trying to make them and get them engaged in group discussions, conversations, and giving them lots of extracurricular activities, getting them back to normalcy. And like I'm saying that be a role model. We have to stay calm. We have to stay lenient, I would like to say. And because it will take time, we have to frequently communicate with them as well as their parents, and get them, motivate them now and then, and getting them to discuss, listening to their perspectives, their viewpoints. Na? Like why, like you said, no, uh, it's not the measure to take suddenly that we can't continue with the disruptive students. Like, no, giving them a chance. There's always some, you can say a silver lining in each and every cloud. So, taking our own time and giving them time as well. So we have to explain them the uses, why they need to reduce their screen times, and get back to books again, like get back to rules and disciplines again, get back to behave again, and how to get attentive. Because as teachers, we can do them. We can use all our, different methodologies, like different techniques we can use. So being calm and being lenient, being understanding, I think are ultimate, these things can help us somehow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I feel very, very happy that you have taken a lot of measures to address these challenges, and you're consistently practicing that without practice, as you mentioned, we have to be the role model. We have to, actually maintain that professionalism to make children understand, okay, that this is a situation, I have to adapt to it. So it's so nice to hear that from you, ma'am. And thank you
Thank
so
you, ma'am.
much for sharing, Sana ma'am. So here, as ma'am mentioned, all the solutions that ma'am has mentioned is, it's very close to getting the children to their best behavior or the ideal behavior that we expect for them to behave at class. And we also have some recommended solutions for whatever ma'am has said. So these can also be some of the, solutions that we could take inside our classroom, so that it would be very, very helpful, especially for the teachers, to go forward and complete the portions of syllabus on time without any hustle. So some of the recommended solutions that we have here is, if the children are facing difficulties in reading and writing, especially when they are missing that routine practice, creating a new engaging activity would definitely help them at class to, bring them back to the track. Especially for reading, children would have lost touch, because generally as teachers give opportunities to students to, get up at class and read a paragraph. So this keeps happening in almost all of our classrooms. But now that has, that has reduced because of the pandemic, because delivering an online lesson, it's such a challenge. But now we have got that opportunity back, so we have to be positive about it, and creating new structures for children to, practice writing and reading. It can take time, but definitely, trying that out would definitely yield results, rather than not trying it out and, looking at the results. Then we have to, gear up more to bridge that gap. So taking small steps would definitely help. And again, when the children are showing a lot of disruptive behavior, when we focus more on the negative behavior of the child, and we also, tend to lose our calm, and then we kind of, if we keep giving negative consequences, or showing, punishments, or giving them corporal or verbal punishments or non-verbal punishments, it would impact the child more, and it will worsen the condition. And child himself starts to think, okay, disruptive behavior, I'm already feeling lonely, again I will, I will separate myself from this, current environment. So that is even worse, it will worsen the situation. Instead, we could focus on positive reinforcement. Example, just give a tap on the back when, when the child is
Hi everyone, we are facing a technical difficulty. Niroshni will be joining back in shortly. Please wait for a couple of minutes.
There was a small technical glitch from my end. I would like to launch a poll. You'll see a pop-up on your screen. I hope you can see the screen. Please start answering this poll so that we get to know the mindset. Thank you so much. I would like to publish the results to you. So this poll is more about, so we spoke about teacher difficulties. This poll is more about whether our teachers are very, very well equipped for this situation. So we can see that, like teachers are facing difficulties where, like some of them are feeling that it is very difficult. Some of them are feeling it is, like it is difficult at some times. This is because, like teachers know to handle like a certain situation when children are showing disruptive behavior, but at times when like they almost all the class like behave in the same way, then teacher faces a lot of struggle. So teachers are generally not prepared for this trauma handling because the pandemic has put through a lot of traumatic conditions on the children, so they might not be like equipped. Some of them maybe, some of them not, may be equipped to handle these behaviors. So let's quickly see how can we like effectively manage these disruptive behavior, and how can we handle the situation well. Different types of disruptive behavior. Number one, we all tend to notice this aggressive behavior that is happening recently in the classroom, and this is happening very, very often. I think I would like to quote an example. There are like more outbursts that is happening around in the classroom, as we saw according to the data, like peer fights. Like they fight in the corridor when they are supposed to form a line, they keep fighting. So there is a frequency of aggression behavior has actually increased drastically. So what could be some of the recommended solutions for these kind of behavior? So as I mentioned earlier, you can always use positive reinforcement than like giving them negative consequences. As well as you can use expressive therapy. Expressive therapy is nothing but like especially like Sana ma'am mentioned, you can always use like play doh, especially for the younger children, to make them play with the dough, and they actually, you can give a task and ask them to form different like statues, or and you can observe them how are they actually working with the play dough. So because of that, they generally like the aggression is reduced. From an expert we have gotten these advices. So the expert mentioned that like using expressive therapy, actually it can go down. So what are the other disruptive behavior? The second disruptive behavior is non-cooperative behavior. So a good example for non-cooperative behavior is that when you generally tell an instruction to the child doesn't follow. And this keeps happening, right? It's not, like copy it from the board, they take time. It's not like that. Example of a good non-example of a non-cooperative behavior is more around, like talking back. This happens in middle school and higher grades. Like arguing with the teacher for like this won't suit me, or I will not do this. So what can be done at that point of time? So having a strong procedure or having a good rule system for the class, and even before starting off the class, setting the tone, telling them like this is what is expected out of you, would definitely make at least 80% of the classroom to know that this is what is expected out of me, and if I don't do this, then I will have to face the consequence. So setting the tone is very important. And as I mentioned, children have lost interest in, like following up with, like the conventional method of blackboard teaching, or even they are not even interested in group activities. So what can be done at that point of time? You can change the project approach. At least you can give them multiple projects, especially when science classes are happening or math classes are happening. You can always give them project-based learning, which will not be like more of like conventional activities or blackboard teaching. It would be more around they explore. When you give the details step, they explore on their own how to like do this. How will I explore this? How will I discover this? So through this, actually children get an engagement level higher according to the expert. The third important disruptive behavior is disrespectful behavior, like making faces on the teacher, like not respecting them, like don't seek permission for the right things. So what could be some of the recommended solutions in such cases according to the expert? Actually being fair and consistent in giving the consequences. So for example, if there is a previous incident, please don't relate it to the current situation and give them consequences. So be very fair, and when you're giving consequences, make sure that the child is understanding actually that I have got these consequences because of this action. So getting to talk with the child is very, very important. And having this individual conversations is very, very important at such condition. And also staying connected with the parents, understanding what kind of traumatic experiences that, like the child has gone through during the pandemic. You can even ask from the previous teacher, if you get a chance, what kind of behavior that he's exhibiting. So is the child like already disruptive? So taking that history from parents and the previous teachers really help you to come to a conclusion how this child could be addressed. And the last behavior is consistently they are showing attention like deficit. They don't like listen to you, and consistently you've been seeing across all classrooms, and all other subject teachers come and complain to you that this child is not attentive. So definitely if you notice something like this, don't come to a conclusion immediately. Please observe the child for a week, or for a course of time, for like a 14 days course, or like at least for a month. If the child is like completely distracted in the class, then I think recommending the parent to take an expert advice is something that we would recommend, because the child might have other issues like like a complete attention deficit like ADHD or other psychological issues. So for that we wouldn't be like appropriate person, but definitely like taking an expert advice would help the parent as well as the class teacher to like shape up the child very well. All these recommended solutions, we had taken it from an expert, is an industry expert, who's going to come and talk and address our gathering next week. So please like implement this in your classroom and see, and you can write back to us. We will display the email ID and contact number very soon. You can see, you can always like implement this in your classroom, or else you can even try and test it for a week, and you can come back next week and say whether like following a routine or following positive reinforcement has worked in your classroom. If you try, you can always like say that I have tried this, is there anything else I have to try? You can ask the expert in the following week. So we have some suggestions for the teachers. So always teachers know this already, but I would like to like reiterate once again. Developing a good teacher mindset and like being consistent is the key here. So that they have been impacted by the pandemic. So we need to like always have this calm mindset even before approaching the class, and having a very well planned out instruction before approaching the class. So all these things is very, very essential for preparing the teacher herself or himself. And also following some best practices that suits your class environment to keep your class engaged and make the children active and motivated is also very important. So we have prepared a small handout which describes like how to develop a good teacher mindset and what kind of best practices you can practice for these kind of like disruptive behavior that was mentioned in the previous slide. I would like to like take you through the handout so that I'll explain what we have given in the handout, so that you can go back to your classroom and you can start testing out. And we've also attached a couple of videos for your reference. You can watch all of those and understand, like what kind of routine you can follow, and you can design what would be appropriate for your classroom. Give me a moment. So in this handout, we have in depth, we have covered the different types of disruptive behavior and examples of, like disruptive behavior. For this kind of disruptive behavior, what kind of teacher mindset we should be having, and what are some of the recommended solutions that we are recommending from the expert. And that is something that has been tabulated. And you can also see below, we have described certain morning routine. So what is a morning routine? So I've been talking so much about morning routine to, like follow practice. You have to follow rules. So we have described everything here. What is a morning routine and what kind of activities would, will become a morning routine. And we also have attached a video sample to understand positive reinforcement. A morning routine. And also we have given you positive reinforcement in a lot of slides. I've spoken about it. So you can look at the handout and understand how positive reinforcement will work. And we also have attached a sample video to it so that you can use it for your future reference. So here again, we have mentioned what are the different types of rules you can apply to your classroom, how you can set the standard. We have tabulated using a guideline, and we have given you examples and non-examples to be followed. And also we have spoken about, like consequences. What are the negative consequence? What is the positive consequence? And we've attached video references. Here in the consequences part, we'll be discussing in detail in the next session, like what kind of negative consequences are there and what kind of positive consequences are there, how this can be implemented in detail in the next session. But you can understand what kind of negative consequences can be given and positive consequences can be given inside a classroom using these sample videos. So I hope this is going to be helpful. And I would be, like giving this link in the Q&A box so that you can use. And also this handout will reach to you on Monday through email to all of the participants. I have updated the handout link in the Q&A box. You can see. As we have seen a lot of solutions and recommendations from the expert, in the next following session, we would be having Ms. Asha Nyana Olive, who's the founder and director of Beautiful Minds Astitva. So she is going to come here, and she's an expert in this industry in child psychology and well-being. So she would be here to address your queries. And as I said, please practice some of these surface level like recommendations that we have given it to you, so that when you practice and when you come in the next following week, you can ask her whether it's working or not, what kind of difficulties you had faced, and you can always raise this query to her. And in the next session, we would be covering these two broad topics, which would be, like in depth, we'll be understanding, like why this disruptive behavior is happening and what kind of strategies we could employ to mitigate and stabilize this behavior. And also we would be in depth, we'll be discussing different techniques to create a good classroom management plan, so that according to your classroom environment, you can redesign and adapt to that, make the children adapt to that particular learning environment. So these are the important objectives that we would be covering in the forthcoming session. And I would also like to, talk about a couple of Vartana programs that we already have. So we all know because of pandemic, there's a huge learning gap that has happened. So we have a program called Unlock School Program, where this is exclusively designed for remedial education. And this is something that we focus on developing English and mathematics for children for grades 1 to 8. And again, we have one more program. This is exclusively designed for school leaders, where fee collection is a huge issue. So to to address that, we have designed the Smart Fee program, which provides support to the school to collect fees from the parents on a monthly basis, and we don't charge any interest for the same. A couple of programs that we are offering currently, and also you can reach out to us on the following email ID and contact number to know more about the program, or if you want to write any feedback or recommendations about it, or even you can write back to us if you have practiced something inside your classroom. You write that feedback to us. We'll be very, very happy to look at it.